"Marry me instead," the cowboy said after seeing the black widow beaten by her in-laws for birthing a daughter. The words cut through the cramped back room like winter wind through cracked wood. Maria Larkwood froze on her knees, baby Elsie pressed against her chest. Blood trickled from her split lip onto the infant's blanket. Cornelius Whitmore's raised hand hung in the air. His sister Prudence clutched her skirts, mouth agape. Both stared at the stranger filling their doorway. The cowboy removed his hat. Dust motes danced in the shaft of afternoon light behind him. His boots were worn, but his posture spoke of something deeper than prairie drift. "Ma'am," he nodded to Maria. His voice carried no urgency despite the chaos he'd interrupted. "Seems you could use a husband who won't raise his hand to you." Maria's breath caught. Elsie's cries filled the silence that followed. The baby had been born 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of Cornelius calling her cursed. 3 weeks of Prudence spitting about bloodlines and worthless daughters. Her husband Thomas lay 6 months dead, kicked by his own horse while mending fence, left her with nothing but his family's grudging shelter and their mounting rage. "Get out." Cornelius found his voice. His face flushed red as barn paint. "This is family business." The stranger didn't move. His eyes stayed on Maria. They were brown like creek stones, steady and unblinking. "Name's Levi McGraw. I need a wife." He spoke as if discussing whether. "You need protection." "Seems practical." Prudence stepped forward, her thin lips pursed tight. "She belongs to this family, the baby too. Don't see any chains." Maria's heart hammered against her ribs. Elsie's weight felt heavier in her trembling arms. The wooden floor pressed hard against her knees. She'd knelt here before, scrubbing stains from Prudence's good dress, polishing boots that kicked her when she moved too slow. The stranger's offer hung in the air like smoke. Impossible, dangerous. Real. Cornelius stepped between them. His bulk filled the narrow space. "You got no right coming in here. Every man's got the right to propose marriage." Levi's tone stayed level. "Every woman's got the right to say yes or no. Not this woman." "Why's that?" The question landed quiet but sharp. Cornelius's jaw worked, his hands clenched. The reason sat ugly in the room's corners, unspoken but heavy as summer heat. Maria studied the stranger's face. No mockery there, no pity either, just plain truth offered like fresh water. She'd been Thomas's wife for 2 years. Married him when she was 26, grateful for his kindness. He'd courted her proper despite his family's objections, defended her when neighbors whispered. But Thomas was gone now. His family remained. "She ain't respectable," Prudence hissed. "No decent man would want her." Levi's gaze never wavered from Maria. "Looks respectable enough to me." The words hit like benediction. Maria felt tears threaten. She bit them back. Crying would only prove Prudence right about her weakness. Cornelius moved closer to Levi. "You don't know what you're asking for, stranger. Asking for a wife, offering protection and provision in return." "She's got protection here." Maria's ribs ached where Cornelius had shoved her against the washstand that morning. Her shoulders bore bruises from Prudence's pinching fingers. Protection felt like mockery in this house. Levi reached into his vest, drew out a leather wallet. The movement was casual, but Cornelius stepped back instinctively. "Got a claim up north, good water, decent soil." He pulled out several bills, more money than Maria had seen since Thomas died. "Need someone to help work it proper." The cash looked clean, crisp, strange for a drifter's wages. "Where'd you get that kind of money?" Cornelius's voice carried suspicion. "Honest work." "What kind of work?" Levi tucked the wallet away. "The kind that pays fair wages to those willing to earn them." His answer revealed nothing and everything. Maria caught something in his bearing, the way he stood, the careful way he spoke. This was no ordinary cowpoke. Elsie's crying softened to whimpers. The baby's dark eyes blinked up at her mother, so small, so helpless. What future waited in this house of grudges and blame? "Think on it, ma'am." Levi settled his hat back on his head. "I'll be at the hotel tonight. Can give you an answer in the morning." "She ain't going nowhere," Cornelius snarled. "That her decision or yours?" The question hung sharp as a blade. Maria felt its edge cut through months of being told what she could and couldn't do, where she could go, what she could say, when she could eat, when she could sleep, when she could hold her own child. The stranger turned to leave. His boots sounded steady on the wooden floor. At the threshold he paused. "Ma'am, your baby's beautiful. Any fool can see she's a blessing." Then he was gone. The room felt smaller without him. Cornelius slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Prudence began pacing, her skirts swishing angry rhythms. Nerve of that man, coming in here like he owns the place. "We should tell the sheriff," Cornelius muttered. "Strangers got no business interfering." Maria remained on her knees, holding Elsie close. The baby had quieted completely. Her tiny fist curled around Maria's finger with surprising strength. The stranger's words echoed. "Your baby's beautiful. Any fool can see she's a blessing." No one in this house had called Elsie a blessing. Curse, maybe. Disappointment, certainly. But never blessing. Outside, hoofbeats faded into distance. Maria closed her eyes. For the first time in months, something that might have been hope stirred in her chest. It felt dangerous as wildfire, and just as warm. Dawn light crept through the cracked window when Maria made her choice. Elsie slept against her chest, breathing soft and steady. The decision had crystallized during the long night like frost on glass. She would marry the stranger. The alternative stretched before her endless as drought. More years of Cornelius's fists, Prudence's poison words. Watching Elsie grow up believing herself unwanted. Maria dressed in her only good dress. Black wool, worn but clean. She wrapped Elsie in Thomas's baby blanket. The one his mother had sewn before deciding grandchildren weren't worth claiming. Footsteps creaked in the hall. Cornelius would wake soon, expecting breakfast. Coffee strong enough to float horseshoes. Eggs fried hard. The routine that had bound her since Thomas died. She slipped out the back door while shadows still held the yard. The hotel sat 3 blocks away. Her feet knew every loose board, every muddy rut. She'd walked these streets as Thomas's wife. Now she walked them as herself alone. Levi McGraw stood on the hotel porch. His horse waited saddled. He'd expected her answer before she'd given it. "Morning, ma'am, morning." They studied each other in the growing light. His face looked carved from prairie stone, hard but not cruel. His clothes were simple but well kept. No flash or fancy, just solid cloth that would last. "You sure about this?" His voice carried no pressure. "Once we're wed, there's no going back easy." Maria shifted Elsie's weight. The baby stirred but didn't wake. "Going back to what?" The question answered itself. He nodded once. "Need to make this legal proper. Parson's expecting us." They walked to the small church at the end of Main Street. Their footsteps echoed on the wooden sidewalk. Few people stirred this early. The baker, the livery stable owner, folks who minded their own business. Parson Wells waited inside with his wife as witness. The old man's hands shook, but his voice rang clear. The words felt ancient and new at once. "Till death do us part, for better or worse." Maria spoke her vows holding Elsie. The baby's weight reminded her why she stood here. Not for love, not for passion, for survival and something better. Levi's vows came steady as rainfall. He looked at her when he spoke them. Not through her or past her, at her. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." No kiss sealed the bargain, just a handshake between strangers who'd bound their lives together with words and witnesses. Outside, shouting erupted from the direction of the Whitmore house. Cornelius had discovered her absence. "We should go." Levi helped her mount his spare horse. The animal stood calm while she settled Elsie against her chest. "Long ride ahead." "Where are we going?" "North, got land up near Cedar Falls." The name meant nothing to her. Somewhere else, somewhere away, that was enough. They rode out as the sun cleared the horizon. Behind them, dusk clouds marked riders heading their direction. Cornelius wouldn't let her go without a fight. The prairie stretched endless ahead. Grass bent under wind that carried the scent of coming rain. Maria breathed deep. The air tasted of freedom. "He'll follow," she said. "Let him try." Levi's certainty struck her as odd. Most men would worry about angry in-laws with guns and grievances. He rode like a man accustomed to trouble. They stopped at midday by a creek lined with cottonwoods. The horses drank while Elsie nursed. Levi sat apart, giving them privacy. His consideration touched something in Maria's chest. "Why did you do it?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. He studied the water running over smooth stones. Seemed like the right thing. "You don't know me. Know enough. What do you know? You're brave. You love your daughter. You deserved better than what those people gave you." His words settled warm as sunlight. Maria had forgotten what kindness sounded like from a man's voice. "What do you want from me?" The real question. The one that had kept her awake. Partnership, someone to help build something decent. "That's all." He met her eyes then. Something deeper moved in their brown depths. "That's enough to start with." Thunder rumbled in the distance. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon. They mounted up and rode hard toward a line of hills that promised shelter. The rain caught them halfway. Fat drops that turned dust to mud. Levi led them to an overhang of rock that provided decent cover. They waited while water poured from the darkened sky. Elsie fussed at the thunder's boom. Maria soothed her with quiet humming. The same song her own mother had sung. One of the few memories that hadn't turned bitter. Pretty voice. Levi tended the horses, checking their gear with practiced hands. "My mother sang it. She's still living." "No." He didn't press for details. Maria appreciated the silence. Some stories weren't ready for telling. The storm passed as quickly as it had come. They emerged into air scrubbed clean and sweet. The prairie gleamed wet and green. Somewhere behind them, pursuit would struggle through muddy trails. "That'll slow them down," Levi observed. "Will it stop them?" "Nothing stops men like that, but it buys us time." His calm troubled her. Most men would curse the weather and push harder. Levi seemed to expect obstacles, prepared for them. "Who are you really?" The question came out sharper than intended. He adjusted his hat brim. Water dripped from the leather. "Man who offered you marriage. Man who means to keep his word." Truth and evasion mixed in his answer. Maria filed the puzzle away. Everyone carried secrets, hers included. They rode until darkness forced a halt, made camp in a hollow sheltered by scrub oak. No fire. Smoke would mark their position for any trackers. Cold biscuits and jerky for supper. Creek water that tasted of stone and sky. Elsie slept wrapped in dry blankets while her parents sat watch. "Get some rest," Levi said. "I'll take first watch." "I'm not tired." "You're exhausted." "Been running on nerves since yesterday." He was right. Maria felt hollow as a dried gourd, but sleep meant vulnerability, trust she wasn't ready to give. "I don't know you." "No, but I gave you my name and my word. That's all any man's got worth offering." His honesty cut through her defenses. She settled beside Elsie, one hand on the baby's chest. The steady rise and fall gradually slowed her racing thoughts. When she woke, stars wheeled overhead. Levi sat motionless against a tree trunk, guardian against whatever darkness might bring. For the first time in months, Maria slept without fear. Morning came gray and cool. They broke camp before sunrise and rode deeper into country neither Thomas nor his family had ever seen. Each mile took them further from the life Maria had known, further from safety, closer to something that might be hope. 3 days on the trail revealed the stranger Maria had married. Levi McGraw knew things ordinary cowboys didn't. When Elsie developed colic, he brewed tea from wild mint that settled her stomach. When their water ran low, he found a hidden spring by reading the flight patterns of birds. His hands moved with surgeon's precision, cleaning a cut on his horse's leg. His voice carried education when he murmured Shakespeare to calm the animal. "There is a tide in the affairs of men." Maria watched him work, questioned silently. Drifters didn't quote Hamlet or carry medical knowledge in their saddlebags. "Where did you learn that?" She nodded toward the neatly bandaged wound. "Books mostly." "What kind of books?" His hands stilled on the leather. "The useful kind." Another evasion. They multiplied between them like tumbleweeds, catching on every conversation. They rode through country that grew wilder with each mile. Pine forests replaced prairie grass. Mountains rose blue and distant ahead. The air thinned and sharpened. At night they camped without fire. Cold food, colder silence. Levi always took first watch, sitting motionless as carved stone. Maria would wake to find him exactly where she'd left him, alert and listening. "What are you watching for?" "Whatever needs watching." His vigilance unsettled her. Men didn't develop such wariness herding cattle or breaking horses. This came from different dangers, deadlier ones. On the fourth day, Elsie's fever spiked. The baby burned against Maria's chest. Her tiny face flushed red as sunset. Her breathing came quick and shallow. Maria's heart clenched. She'd lost a child before Elsie. A son born too early, buried in ground that belonged to strangers. The memory carved fresh grief through her chest. "She's sick." Levi reined in immediately, dismounted and reached for the baby with steady hands. His fingers found the pulse point at Elsie's neck, checked her eyes and ears with practiced efficiency. "Fever's high but not dangerous yet. We need shelter and medicine." "What kind of medicine?" "Willow bark, elderflower if we can find it." He spoke with authority that brooked no argument. This wasn't folk wisdom passed down through generations. This was medical knowledge learned from textbooks and practice. They found an abandoned line shack tucked against a granite outcropping. The roof leaked but 3 walls held solid. Levi built a small fire in the crumbling hearth while Maria laid Elsie on a bed of pine boughs. The baby's fever climbed. Her cries weakened to whimpers that cut deeper than screaming. Levi returned with plants Maria didn't recognize. His hands worked swift and sure, brewing teas and poultices. He showed her how to check Elsie's temperature by touch, how to watch for signs of worsening distress. "You're a doctor." The word slipped out flat as fact. He didn't deny it, didn't confirm it either, just continued his work with focused intensity. Night fell heavy and cold. The fever raged through Elsie's small body. Maria held her daughter while Levi spooned medicine between tiny lips. Drop by careful drop. "Will she live?" "I don't know." His honesty cut sharp as winter wind. No false comfort, no empty promises, just truth offered bare and clean. They took turns through the long night. When Maria's arms grew numb, Levi cradled Elsie against his chest. When he needed to brew fresh medicine, Maria held vigil. Somewhere near dawn, the baby's breathing eased. Her skin cooled. The fever broke in a wash of healthy sweat. Maria wept then, tears she'd held back for days, relief and gratitude and something deeper, something that felt dangerously close to trust. Levi handed her his handkerchief. Clean cotton that smelled of sage and careful washing. His fingers brushed hers in the exchange, warm and steady. "Thank you, no need." But there was need, deep and aching. This man had saved her daughter's life, asked nothing in return, expected no payment or praise. They stayed in the shack another day while Elsie regained strength. Levi showed Maria which plants to gather for medicine, how to prepare tinctures and teas. Knowledge no ordinary cowboy possessed. "Who taught you this?" "Good teachers." "Long time ago." "Where?" His jaw tightened. "Back east." The words carried weight. History he wasn't ready to share. Maria understood the need for buried past. Some doors stayed locked for good reason. On the 6th day they rode deeper into mountain country. The trail wound through passes carved by ancient water. Eagles circled overhead, riding thermals that spoke of freedom. But they weren't alone. Dust clouds marked their back trail. Riders pushing hard despite rough terrain. Too many for casual travelers, too persistent for chance. "How many?" Maria asked. Levi studied the distant signs. 4, maybe 5. "Cornelius?" "Likely." His calm never wavered. Maria envied that steadiness. Her own nerves stretched tight as fence wire. "What do we do?" "Keep riding, make them work for it." The pursuit closed slowly but steadily. Professional trackers who knew their business. They'd hired skill to hunt what they considered stolen property. At midday Levi led them off the main trail, down a narrow path that twisted through boulder fields and deadfall timber. The horses picked their way carefully over treacherous ground. "You know this country," another observation disguised as casual comment. "Some." "You've been here before." Once or twice, more evasions, more questions without answers, but his knowledge kept them ahead of their pursuers, kept Elsie safe. They camped that night in a box canyon with only one entrance, defensible ground for a man who understood such things. Levi positioned himself where he could watch the narrow opening. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow we reach Cedar Falls." Maria settled beside Elsie on their bedroll. The baby slept peacefully now, her fever gone. Small fingers curled around Maria's thumb with trusting strength. "Why are you helping us?" The question hung in darkness between them. Levi's shadow didn't move against the canyon wall. "Told you already. You told me what you wanted me to hear." Silence stretched long as the night sky. Maria thought he wouldn't answer. Then his voice came quiet as wind through pine needles. "Had a sister once, about your age when she died." The words carried grief deep as winter wells, old pain that never fully healed. "What happened to her?" "Married the wrong man. Man who used his fists to solve disagreements." Understanding passed between them without need for details. Violence wore familiar patterns, left predictable scars. "I'm sorry." "So am I." His sister's ghost explained everything. The quick intervention, the marriage proposal, the steady protection offered without expectation. Maria had become his second chance. Elsie the child he couldn't save before. The knowledge settled warm in her chest. Not love, not yet, but something deeper than gratitude. The beginning of true partnership built on shared purpose. Tomorrow would bring Cedar Falls. Safety or new dangers, she couldn't know which. But tonight she slept without fear beside a man who understood what it meant to fail someone you loved, who'd chosen not to fail again. The stars wheeled overhead, distant and cold and beautiful. The canyon walls stood guard against whatever morning might bring. Cedar Falls sprawled beside a river that carved silver through granite. The town wore prosperity in its wide streets and painted storefronts. Nothing like the weathered settlement Maria had fled. Levi rode straight to the bank, a substantial building with brass fittings and glass windows that caught morning light. He dismounted with purpose. "Wait here." Maria watched him enter. Through the windows she glimpsed him speaking with a well-dressed man behind an oak desk. The banker's face lit with recognition. He stood quickly, extending his hand with obvious respect. Curious. Cowboys didn't inspire such deference from financial men. The conversation lasted 20 minutes. Papers changed hands. The banker nodded repeatedly. When Levi emerged, he carried a leather satchel that hadn't existed before. "Business?" Maria asked. "Banking." The non-answer felt familiar now, but his evasions carried different weight in this prosperous town. Here he moved with confidence, familiarity. They rode to the hotel. The clerk's eyes widened when Levi signed the register. He fumbled with the key, stammered about their finest room, called Levi "sir" 3 times in 30 seconds. The room held luxury Maria hadn't seen since childhood. Clean sheets, hot water, a window that overlooked the river instead of dusty streets. Elsie gurgled contentedly on the soft mattress. Her fever was fully broken now. She reached for dust motes dancing in sunlight. "I need supplies," Levi said. "You'll be safe here." "How do you know?" "This is a civilized town." The way he said it suggested civilization came at his word, as if he held some authority here, some influence that guaranteed protection. Maria waited until his footsteps faded down the hall. Then she lifted Elsie and walked to the window. The view showed her husband moving through the street below. Shopkeepers nodded respectfully. A woman in silk dress stopped to speak with him. He belonged here. That much was clear. The question was how. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. The hotel clerk stood in the doorway holding a telegram. His hand shook slightly as he offered it. "For Mr. McGraw, ma'am, came in this morning." The envelope bore expensive paper, quality that spoke of wealth and importance. The return address read Boston, Massachusetts. Maria set it on the writing desk, unopened but not ignored. Evidence of Levi's hidden life. When he returned, his arms full of packages, she watched his face. His eyes found the telegram immediately. His jaw tightened. "Mail for you." He tore it open. "Read quickly." His expression darkened. Bad news, family business. What kind of family? He folded the telegram, tucked it into his vest pocket. The complicated kind. Outside, horses clattered past the window. Maria counted 4 riders. Dusty men with hard faces. They reined up at the saloon across the street. They found us. Levi joined her at the window, studied the riders with professional interest. Cornelius hired professionals, bounty hunters, something close to it. His calm never wavered, but his hand moved to check the pistol at his hip, an unconscious gesture that spoke of experience with dangerous men. What do we do? Nothing yet. They'll ask questions first. Test the ground. Then, depends on what they learn. Maria settled Elsie in the hotel crib. The baby dozed peacefully, unaware of the threats gathering outside. Innocence was a luxury that wouldn't last long. I need to tell you something. The words came harder than expected. About who I am. Levi turned from the window. His brown eyes held steady attention. My father was Charles Whitmore, the plantation owner. Levi's expression didn't change. No shock, no judgment, just quiet acceptance of truth finally offered. He acknowledged me privately, left me money in his will, a substantial inheritance. Why didn't you claim it? Thomas knew, married me anyway. But his family would never have accepted the truth. Easier to let them believe I was just another freed woman looking for security. And now, Maria touched the locket at her throat. Inside lay the photograph that proved her parentage. Her father's final letter, legal documents that could change everything. Now I'm tired of pretending to be less than I am. What does that mean? It means I have resources, options. I don't need rescuing anymore. The words hung between them, truth that shifted the balance of their arrangement. She wasn't just a helpless widow fleeing abuse. She was a woman with her own power. Levi absorbed this information without visible reaction. Why are you telling me? Because you saved my daughter's life. Because you've protected us when you didn't have to. Because you deserve honesty. What do you want from me? The question turned her own words back at her. What did she want? Safety was no longer enough. Elsie's future required more than mere survival. Partnership, real partnership. Between equals. Even if my past complicates things. What kind of complications? He pulled the telegram from his pocket, unfolded it carefully. The message was brief but loaded with meaning. Grandfather's estate settled. Inheritance awaits your claim. Family eager for reconciliation. Return immediately. Boston needs you. Maria read it twice. The implication struck her slowly. Inheritance, estate, Boston family, you're wealthy. Was. Might be again if I choose. Why haven't you chosen? Because wealth comes with obligations, expectations, a life I ran from for good reasons. What reasons? Levi moved to the window again. Watched the street where danger waited in familiar forms. My family wanted me to marry a woman who believed some people were worth less than others. When I refused, they cut me off. So you came west, started over, became someone else. And now I have a wife and daughter who deserve better than a drifter's life. The word struck deep, wife and daughter. He'd claimed them both without reservation, made them his family in truth as well as law. What are you saying? Saying maybe it's time to stop running, face what I left behind, use whatever power I have to protect what matters. Through the window, the bounty hunters emerged from the saloon. They moved with purpose now, asking questions, following leads that would bring them closer. They're coming, Maria said. Let them come. His voice carried new steel. Decision crystallized into action. He opened one of his packages. Inside lay a suit of clothes that spoke of quality and status. Boston tailoring, Eastern refinement. Time to remind this town who I really am. Who are you really? Leviticus McGraw III, heir to the McGraw shipping fortune. Harvard-educated, Boston-born. He began changing clothes with efficient movements. The transformation was remarkable. Cowboy became gentleman before her eyes. And you, he asked, ready to claim your own birthright? Maria looked at her reflection in the hotel mirror, saw her father's eyes staring back, felt the weight of inheritance she'd denied too long. Yes, Then let's give these hunters something to think about. Outside, Cedar Falls hummed with afternoon business, but change rode the wind. Two people who'd hidden their true selves were about to step into the light. The reckoning was coming, and they would meet it as equals. They came at sunset when the street glowed amber with dying light. Cornelius Whitmore rode with 4 hired men who wore guns with professional ease. Their horses kicked dust into the still air. Their faces carried the hard certainty of men paid to retrieve stolen property. Maria watched from the hotel window. Elsie slept peacefully in her arms, unaware that her future hung in the balance. The baby's breathing stayed steady and calm. Below, the riders dismounted outside the sheriff's office. Cornelius carried papers that fluttered in the evening breeze, legal documents that could tear apart the fragile safety they'd built. "He's got something," Maria said. Levi adjusted his cufflinks. The Boston suit transformed him completely. Gone was the weathered cowboy. In his place stood a man of obvious breeding and authority, expected as much. What kind of papers would he bring? The kind that claim you're an unfit mother. That name him guardian of your daughter. The words hit like winter wind. Maria's arms tightened around Elsie. Can he do that? Depends on what judge he's bribed, what lies he's willing to tell. Through the window they watched Cornelius emerge from the sheriff's office. He pointed toward the hotel. The hired men checked their weapons with casual efficiency. "Time to go down," Levi said. "I'm scared." "Good, fear keeps you sharp." They descended the hotel stairs with measured steps. Levi carried himself with the bearing of a man accustomed to deference. Maria held Elsie close, drawing strength from her daughter's warmth. The hotel lobby buzzed with tension. Other guests had noticed the armed men outside. Conversations died as Maria and Levi appeared. The confrontation began before they reached the door. Cornelius burst into the lobby with Sheriff Morrison at his side. The lawman looked uncomfortable but determined. Papers rustled in his weathered hands. "There she is." Cornelius pointed at Maria with righteous fury. "The woman who stole my brother's child. Now hold on." Sheriff Morrison studied the legal documents again. "Says here you got legitimate claim to guardianship. Signed by Judge Patterson himself. Maria Whitmore is declared unfit by reason of abandoning her lawful family." The words twisted truth into legal fiction. Maria felt anger burn in her chest, but she stayed silent. Let them reveal their hand completely. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to hand over that baby." Sheriff Morrison reached for Elsie. His face showed no pleasure in the task. "Just duty performed under pressure." "I think not." Levi's voice cut through the tension sharp as blade on stone. He stepped forward with quiet authority that filled the room. "And you are?" The sheriff's hand moved instinctively toward his gun. "Leviticus McGraw, her husband." "Don't matter who you are, mister. Got legal papers here." "Do you indeed?" Levi's tone carried amusement that chilled the air. He reached into his vest and withdrew his own documents. Clean paper that crackled with official weight. "Marriage certificate filed in this county, witnessed and sealed. Makes me the child's legal stepfather." Cornelius snarled. "Marriage don't change nothing. She's still unfit." "According to whom?" Judge Patterson ruled on evidence presented. "What evidence?" The question hung sharp in the lobby's sudden silence. Cornelius fumbled with his papers. The sheriff looked between the documents with growing confusion. Evidence of abandonment, theft of family property, consorting with known criminals. Each accusation landed hollow, desperate lies dressed in legal language. Maria stepped forward. Her voice came steady despite her racing heart. "Sheriff Morrison, I'd like to present some evidence of my own." She reached into her reticule and withdrew the locket. Inside lay the photograph that would change everything. Her father's image stared back at them. Charles Whitmore in his prime. "This is my father, Charles Whitmore, Cornelius's own father." The photograph passed from hand to hand. Recognition dawned slowly on the sheriff's face. The resemblance was unmistakable. "You're saying you're Charles Whitmore's daughter. I'm saying I'm his acknowledged heir. Left substantial inheritance in his will." Cornelius's face went white as bone. That's impossible. She's lying. Am I? Maria produced her father's final letter, the legal document that acknowledged her parentage, the inheritance papers that made her wealthy in her own right. Sheriff Morrison read slowly. His expression shifted from confusion to understanding to something approaching awe. This changes things considerable. Changes nothing. Cornelius grabbed for the papers. She's still colored. Still unfit. Unfit for what exactly? Levi's voice carried dangerous quiet. He'd moved closer to Cornelius without seeming to step. His presence suddenly filled more space than his body occupied. Unfit to raise a white child in decent society. Whose society would that be? Christian society, civilized society. I see. Levi turned to the sheriff. Morrison, you know who I am now. Can't say I do, Mr. McGraw. My grandfather owned the railroad that built this town. My family's shipping company supplies half the territory. My lawyers could shut down every business on this street with 3 telegrams. The words fell like hammer blows. Sheriff Morrison's face went pale. Even the hired gunmen shifted nervously. I don't want to use that power, but I will if necessary. Now see here, Cornelius tried bluster, but his voice cracked. You can't threaten officers of the law. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm stating facts. Levi withdrew another document from his vest. This one bore official seals and ribbons. Federal marriage license, filed in territorial court, witnessed by 3 judges. My wife and stepdaughter are under federal protection as members of my family. Federal protection. My grandfather served in Lincoln's cabinet. My family has connections in Washington that reach very high indeed. The revelation struck the room silent. Federal authority trumped local corruption. Everyone present understood the implications. Sheriff Morrison cleared his throat. Mr. Whitmore, I'm thinking maybe you got some bad information here. But the papers. Judge Patterson signed them. Judge Patterson don't have jurisdiction over federal marriages. These folks are legally wed child's got a proper father now. Cornelius looked between his hired men and the legal documents scattered across the hotel desk. His certainty crumbled under the weight of superior authority. This ain't over. Yes, Maria said quietly, it is. She stepped closer to her brother-in-law, close enough to see the hatred burning in his eyes. I'm Charles Whitmore's daughter, Levi's wife, Elsie's mother. I have resources now, protection. Try to hurt my family again and I'll use every advantage I possess. You think you're better than us now. I think I'm exactly what I've always been. The difference is now I have the power to prove it. Cornelius turned on his heel and stalked toward the door. His hired men followed with reluctant steps. Their payday had evaporated along with their employer's legal standing. Sheriff Morrison tipped his hat. Mrs. McGraw, Mr. McGraw, sorry for the trouble. The lobby emptied slowly. Other guests drifted back to their business. The crisis had passed without violence or bloodshed. Maria sank into a chair. Relief flooded through her like spring water. Elsie stirred in her arms but didn't wake. Is it really over? For now. Levi loosened his tie. The formal clothes had served their purpose but sat awkwardly on shoulders accustomed to rough work. What happens next? We build a life together as equals. The promise hung between them solid as mountain stone. They'd both revealed their true selves now. Both claimed their birthrights. Both chosen partnership over solitude. Outside, sunset painted the mountains gold and crimson. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new choices, but tonight they were safe, free, united by bonds stronger than law or blood, a family by choice and love. The hotel room held silence heavy as mountain snow. Cornelius and his hired men had retreated into the growing darkness. Legal threats dissolved into empty air, but questions remained thick between husband and wife. Maria sat by the window, watching stars emerge over Cedar Falls. Elsie nursed contentedly in her arms. The baby's fingers curled around her mother's thumb with trusting strength. Levi stood across the room, still wearing his Boston suit. The fine clothes made him a stranger again, wealthy, educated, connected to a world Maria had glimpsed only in childhood memories. You could leave now, she said. Your obligation is fulfilled. I have my inheritance. Elsie has protection. Is that what you want? The question hung between them soft as evening mist. Maria studied his face in the lamplight, saw the man who'd saved her daughter's life, who'd stood against corrupt authority with quiet courage. I want to know why you'd stay. Because running got old, because this feels like home. This room, this family. The words settled warm in her chest. Family, not arrangement or convenience. Something deeper built on shared trials and mutual respect. What about Boston? Your inheritance? Money can wait. This can't. He moved to the window beside her, close enough that she could smell soap and leather on his clothes. His presence felt solid as granite. What exactly is this? Love, I think, if you'll have it. The confession came quiet as rainfall. No grand gestures or flowery speeches, just truth offered plain and honest. Maria felt tears threaten. Happy tears this time, the kind she'd forgotten existed. Yes. One word that changed everything. Levi's hand found hers in the dim light, their fingers intertwined with natural ease. Outside, the town settled into peaceful rhythms. But inside the hotel room, two wounded souls chose healing over fear, partnership over solitude. The morning brought decisions. They walked to the telegraph office hand in hand. Elsie rode secure in Maria's arms, gurgling at the bright mountain air. The baby seemed to sense the shift in her parents' mood. Joy was contagious even to infant hearts. Levi composed his message to Boston with careful words. Claiming inheritance stop, bringing family west stop, will write DTA, less stop. Maria sent her own telegram to lawyers in Charleston. Time to claim her father's legacy properly. Transform hidden inheritance into real power. The responses would take days, but the commitments were made. They would face their pasts together, use their combined resources to build something lasting. The land Levi had claimed lay 20 miles north of town, rolling hills that caught morning light in golden pools. Water ran clear and cold from mountain springs. Soil waited dark and fertile for seed and plow. They rode out to see it that afternoon. The cabin stood half-finished, abandoned when Levi rode south weeks ago. Now it represented possibility instead of loneliness. It's beautiful. Maria meant the words. This place held promise that city mansions never could. Space for children to grow, freedom from curious eyes and bitter judgments. We'll need to expand it, add rooms for a growing family. Growing family, Levi's eyes held gentle humor. Elsie will need brothers and sisters. This valley gets lonely in winter. Heat rose in Maria's cheeks. The thought of more children born from love instead of duty stirred something deep in her heart. We have time to decide such things. All the time in the world. They spent the day planning. Kitchen here, nursery there, barn and corral for the horses they'd need, workshop where Levi could practice medicine for neighbors who required healing. As afternoon faded, they sat on the cabin's unfinished porch. Elsie slept between them on a blanket. The baby's face looked peaceful in the gathering dusk. "Do you ever regret it?" Maria asked. "Choosing this life over the one you left?" "Every morning I wake up grateful I had the courage to choose, even knowing what we'll face. The questions and stares, especially knowing that." His certainty anchored her floating fears. Together they could weather whatever storms came. Together they were stronger than apart. 6 months passed in steady building. The cabin grew into a proper house. White clapboard siding, green shutters, a porch that wrapped 3 sides where evening breezes carried the scent of pine and wildflowers. Maria's inheritance arrived in careful installments. Money she invested in the ranch and the growing town. Her name appeared on deeds and bank documents. Mrs. Leviticus McGraw, property owner and investor. Levi's Boston connections proved their worth. Railway contracts, shipping agreements, the kind of business that built territories into states. But their real success showed in quieter ways. Elsie took her first steps across the kitchen floor. Her laughter rang through rooms that had known only silence before. She called Levi Papa without prompting or confusion. Maria started a school for the ranch children scattered across the valley. Education had saved her once. Now she offered that same salvation to others who needed it. Levi hung out his shingle as the valley's doctor. His medical knowledge combined with gentle authority drew patients from 50 miles around. He charged what people could pay. Often that meant nothing at all. Together they built something precious. A place where worth was measured by character instead of color, where children could grow up believing in their own value. The letter came on a Tuesday in late autumn. Cornelius had died in a drinking accident back in the old town, fell from his horse crossing a swollen creek. Prudence had sold the family property and moved east to live with distant relatives. The news brought no satisfaction. Only the quiet relief of a threat finally ended. That evening, Maria and Levi sat on their porch watching sunset paint the mountains crimson and gold. Elsie played at their feet with wooden toys Levi had carved. Her dark curls caught the dying light. "Any regrets?" Levi asked. Maria considered the question. Her old life felt distant as childhood dreams. This ranch, this family, this love built from mutual choice and daily commitment. None. Even when neighbors whisper, let them whisper. We know who we are. The truth settled between them solid as the mountains themselves. They were husband and wife, parents and partners, builders of something good in a world that often forgot goodness was possible. Stars emerged overhead, the same stars that had watched them flee across dangerous country months ago. Now those celestial guardians smiled down on a home built from hope and defended by love. Elsie babbled happily, secure in the knowledge that she was wanted, cherished, protected by parents who had chosen each other and claimed her as their own. The future stretched ahead uncertain but bright. Whatever came, they would face it together, as equals, as partners, as family. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.